Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over an article that Cox Automotive released at the end of last month. I think this article is absolutely fascinating, so that's why I'm making a video on it. I'll include a link to the full article in the description down below. And then as always, before we get into this video, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. This article that Cox Automotive released, I think, is absolutely fascinating because it talks about some of the challenges that the automotive world is going to be going through moving forward because of a lot of changes that have occurred recently. So the three big categories of change that they talk about in this article is electric vehicle adoption, the new UAW labor agreement, and then finally the rising cost of borrowing money. So we'll start with the electric vehicle side of things. Right now, the US market sees about 8% of its new vehicle sales in the EV space. This is a much smaller percentage compared to what automakers were expecting. They're expecting that we're going to be at 15 to 20% at this point, not 8%. So people aren't buying EVs at the rate that automakers expected. And this also shows in the day supply number. And this is just OEMs. This doesn't count Tesla. EVs sit at 100 days in terms of their day supply number here in the automotive industry in the US, whereas the average new car is at 67 days with the day supply. So EVs are selling at a much slower pace compared to traditional cars. Again, outside of Tesla, always got to mention that. And on top of that, EVs aren't profitable, and Tesla's obviously been a big part of why they aren't profitable for OEMs because of Tesla's massive price cuts. Tesla cut prices on average over $16,000 per car. And so this, led to a huge kind of ripple effect through the market because Tesla is such a big player in the EV space. I mean, Ford lost over $1 billion in money because of these price cuts that they had to go through because of what happened with Tesla. So yeah, it's showing that it's not really profitable for OEMs right now. On top of that, other automakers like General Motors, for example, are pulling back massively on the amount of EVs they plan on producing over the next few years because they just don't see the demand for these EVs. And the thing that I think really just hits the nail in the coffin is what Toyota's saying. Toyota's basically come out, or sorry, I shouldn't say Toyota, but I should say Jack Hollis, the head of sales at Toyota, has come out and said that it's taken them 25 years to get a 10% market share with hybrids, right? And so EVs expecting to take over the market anytime soon, it's just not going to happen. Now, the next thing is with the UAW labor agreement. And here's the deal. This is mostly going to affect Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors, right? Because they were a part of that whole thing. And first off, Ford's come out and said that they are going to have a cost increase of $850 to $900 per vehicle because of the increase in pay with the workers. Now, that's not the full story. There are other cars that are built here in the US that are built in plants that are not, accidentally hit the tripod. They're built in plants that are not part of the UAW. And these plants are going to see their workers also have their wages increase as an indirect effect to this because the automakers that have those plants don't want their people to go and be a part of this labor union. So they'll just increase their wages to keep their people happy so that they don't have to deal with the whole labor union stuff. We'll just kind of leave it at that. But the biggest takeaway is that cars that are built in the US are going to get more expensive because of this, right? And another thing to note in this article is they say that they don't think that there's pricing power to pass this extra cost on to customers. And then the last thing is interest rates. So this obviously affects customers. This is the biggest reason as to why dealers are not able to put together car deals. I've talked about this on the channel where dealers are struggling to get people approved, right? Banks are being really stingy with who they're willing to approve. And then on top of that, the payments have just increased a massive amount. Right here in the article, it states that, payments have increased, and a big part of that is because of interest rates, not because vehicle prices have increased. And then the other part is how this affects dealerships. They use an example of a dealer that says that in 2022, they paid $49,000 in terms of their lot charges with holding cars. And then in 2023, $670,000 with the same dealership. So they're paying way more for their vehicles because interest rates increased and then there's more inventory on the ground. So it's kind of like a double whammy situation for dealers. So On the interest rate side of things, dealers are struggling to, I shouldn't say struggling, but it's more difficult for them to sell cars because of the higher interest rates, and then they're paying way more interest for their cars. And so what Cox Automotive says at the end of the article is that this year was much better than they expected, right? They expected there'd only be 14.1 million new vehicles sold. Now we're looking to see about 15.3 million. And so all the automakers are going to see more revenue this year than expected. But again, that is for 2023. So again, I'll include a link to the article in the description down below so you can read through all of the details for the things that I didn't include in this video. But I want to quickly give my take on this information and kind of talk about what this means moving forward from my perspective as someone who's just always looking into what's happening in the car market. So first off, with EV adoption being so low, I think this is actually going to give more power to Tesla in the EV game. Like, yes, the other automakers are going to build their cars, but because it's so difficult for other automakers to be profitable with EVs like Tesla can be, then they're not going to put as much focus on that, which is going to, I think, give Tesla a larger share of the market for a longer period of time here in the US, which is obviously going to benefit Tesla moving forward. But with that being said, I think that also shows that maybe EVs aren't actually the future. Maybe the automakers should focus on different types of technologies to help improve the efficiency of what we have now, because obviously buyers are not willing to go the EV route right now. Again, less than 10% of the market. And I will not be shocked if that number actually pulls back in the coming years because of how bad EV depreciation has been. And because, again, the EVs have become more affordable, but they're still just not affordable enough. And then with the UAW stuff, this is obviously a very complicated situation, but I do see this putting a huge amount of downward pressure on any vehicle built in the US, right? And I've said this in other videos. I've noticed huge quality issues with vehicles built in the US. Not every single vehicle built in the US, but a large portion of them. And so with US built vehicles having a increase in price because the increase in wages and a decrease in quality from what I have seen, I don't think that quality is going to get better overnight. Just because these people are getting paid more doesn't mean they're all of a sudden going to be, super like outgoing and trying to do their best job on the cars. Some of them maybe, right? Again, it's going to be an individual case by case basis, but I think we're going to see a huge pullback from interest in cars that are built in the US. And I think that some automakers are going to pull out and just build cars elsewhere because they can build them at a lower price so then their margins can be stronger. And then the quality, again, I think that's the biggest thing, because this is what I hear when I go to dealerships, when I talk to people that are buying cars, is the biggest complaint right now is just the quality is not great and the prices are too high. So I think I can't speak for everyone, but from, I guess, anecdotally, it looks like consumers are tapped out at this point and they don't care where a car is built. They just care if it's reliable, if it's built well, and how much it costs. So I think that's going to be a big change that we see. And then the last thing with the interest rates, this will be an interesting thing to see, less so on the consumer side of things, because I think it's pretty straightforward with that, but more so on the dealership side of things. What this does to dealerships moving forward with their business models, considering how much money they're going to have to spend in interest on their inventory, because vehicles are a lot more expensive and interest rates are higher. This definitely dampens profitability. So I'm very interested to see what this looks like for the overall car industry moving forward. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. I'll see you.